She refused to sign the divorce papers. Now, I know why. When I first mentioned divorce, I thought it would be straightforward. We had been married for 7 years, but the last 2 were a living nightmare. The spark that had once kept us together was long gone, replaced by constant arguments and a suffocating tension that made our home feel like a battlefield. We fought about everything: dishes left in the sink, groceries not being put away the right way, even the volume of the TV. But those petty arguments were just surface-level distractions. Deep down, I knew what the real problem was. We weren't in love anymore. One night, after yet another screaming match over something trivial, I couldn't hold back any longer. I told her we needed a divorce. I expected resistance, sure, but I figured we could at least handle it like adults. We'd split what little we had, sign the papers, and move on. No drama. At least, that's what I told myself. When I handed her the papers, though, she refused to sign them. "Why won't you sign?" I asked, genuinely confused. She stared at the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. "I need more time." "What the hell do you need time for?" I snapped, unable to keep my frustration in check. "It's not like we're going to fix this." She just looked at me with those empty, detached eyes and said, "I'm not ready." At first, I thought she was holding on to some hope that we could reconcile. My mom even suggested as much. "She still has feelings for you," Mom said. "She's just not ready to let go." But I knew that wasn't it. This wasn't some romantic drama where love triumphs in the end. Something else was going on. Her behavior became strange. Every time I brought up the divorce, she avoided the conversation entirely. She wouldn't answer my calls or respond to my texts if the subject came up. And when I tried to talk to her in person, she would shut down completely. It was like she was stalling. But for what? A hidden agenda. 5 years ago, my dad passed away and left me the family business, a small auto shop in town. It wasn't some massive corporation, but it was steady and honest work. I poured my heart and soul into it, working long hours and dealing with the everyday challenges of running a business. My wife never showed much interest in the shop. She rarely asked about it, and I assumed she didn't care. I never thought it mattered to her until I started noticing things that didn't add up. Invoices were missing. Expenses appeared on the books that I couldn't explain. Deals were being approved without my knowledge. At first, I chalked it up to clerical errors or maybe a mistake on my part. But then one night, after a particularly brutal day at the shop, I decided to dig into the financials. That's when I saw it. Large sums of money had been transferred to an account I didn't recognize. At first, I thought I'd messed up the bookkeeping. Maybe I'd entered something wrong. But then I saw her name on one of the transactions. Betrayal confirmed. My stomach dropped. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Why would she be taking money from the business? She'd never shown any interest in it before. I decided to confront her. "Do you want to tell me what this is about?" I asked, holding up the bank statement. She didn't even look surprised. Her face was eerily calm as she replied, "It's not what you think." "Then explain it," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "Why is money from my business going into your account?" "I needed it," she said flatly. "For what?" I demanded. Her silence spoke volumes. Piecing it all together over the next few days, I started connecting the dots. The sudden refusal to sign the divorce papers, the stalling, the money transfers. It became clear that she wasn't holding on to some romantic notion of saving our marriage. No, She had been siphoning money from the business for months, possibly years. And now that I was filing for divorce, she was scared I'd find out. I hired a lawyer and a forensic accountant. What they uncovered made my blood boil. She had been funneling money into her personal account and spending it on who knows what. Vacations I didn't know about. Expensive shopping sprees. There was even evidence that she had been sending money to someone else, a man whose name I didn't recognize. The confrontation, when I confronted her with the evidence, she finally broke. "Okay, fine," she shouted. "I took the money, but you wouldn't understand why." "Try me," I said, my voice cold. She hesitated, then said something that turned my world upside down. "I've been helping someone who needed it more than you." "Who?" I demanded. She looked at me, tears streaming down her face, and said, "My boyfriend." A double betrayal. I was stunned. It felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. Not only had she been stealing from me, but she'd been using the money to support another man, a man she'd been seeing behind my back. "How long has this been going on?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. 2 years, she admitted. 2 years. 2 years of lies. 2 years of betrayal. 2 years of thinking I was the problem when all along she had been leading a double life. Taking control, I was done. Done with the lies. Done with the games. Done with her. My lawyer filed for an emergency hearing to freeze her access to the business accounts. We also filed a motion to expedite the divorce proceedings. She fought back, of course. Tried to paint me as the bad guy. Claimed I was controlling and manipulative. But the evidence was on my side. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The divorce was finalized, and she walked away with nothing. Moving forward, it's been 6 months since the divorce was finalized. The auto shop is thriving, and I've started to rebuild my life. I've learned a lot from this experience about trust, about resilience, and about the importance of protecting what's yours. She thought she could take everything from me, but in the end, all she did was set me free. Now, when I look back on those 7 years, I don't feel anger or regret. I feel gratitude. Because losing her was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was late at night when I finally mustered the courage to confront her. My hands trembled as I held the bank statement, the weight of betrayal pressing heavily on my chest. "Did you take money from the business account?" I asked, my voice sharp but tinged with disbelief. Her head snapped up from her phone, and she blinked at me like a deer caught in headlights. "What? No, why would I do that?" she replied, her eyes darting away, unable to meet mine. I pulled out the bank statement and slammed it onto the table between us. The pages fluttered before settling like damning evidence in a courtroom. "Explain this," I demanded. Her face turned as pale as the paper in front of her. She stammered. I needed it for personal stuff." "What personal stuff?" I snapped. "You don't even work." The room fell silent, except for the sound of my heart pounding in my ears. She didn't respond. She couldn't. That's when I knew something was seriously wrong. This wasn't just a misunderstanding or a one-time mistake. This was something much bigger. The unease gnawed at me. Her refusal to sign the divorce papers, the unexplained transfers, everything felt like puzzle pieces from a nightmare I couldn't escape. My instincts screamed at me to dig deeper, so I did. I started investigating, combing through every record, every transaction, every thread that could lead to the truth. What I found left me utterly speechless. She had been siphoning money from the business for months, funneling thousands of dollars into a separate account I hadn't even known existed. But it wasn't just the theft that shocked me, it was where the money was going. She had a gambling problem. The realization hit me like a freight train. She had racked up tens of thousands of dollars in debt, not just in her name, but mine. Worse still, she had used the business, my family's legacy, my father's blood, sweat, and tears as collateral for her loans. I confronted her that same night, unable to contain my anger any longer. "You've been stealing from me from the business. What the hell is wrong with you?" She didn't flinch. Her expression was icy, almost detached. "I didn't have a choice," she said, her voice devoid of any remorse. "What do you mean, you didn't have a choice?" I yelled. "You could have told me. You could have asked for help. You wouldn't have understood," she replied flatly, her tone cutting through me like a blade. Her words felt like a slap in the face. This was the woman I had loved, trusted, and built a life with for 7 years. And now, not only had she betrayed me, but she was also acting like it was my fault. I wanted out more than ever. The thought of staying with her was unbearable, but I was trapped. If I signed the divorce papers and walked away, she would take the business down with her. Everything my dad had built, everything I had worked so hard to maintain, would crumble into ruins. I decided to play it cool, pretending I didn't know the full extent of her schemes. Maybe, just maybe, I could fix the damage without her realizing. But the more I uncovered, the worse it got. She had forged my signature on loan applications, maxed out credit cards, and signed shady deals in my name. Every time I thought I had reached the bottom of this nightmare, I discovered another layer of deceit. One night, I found evidence that she had taken out yet another loan behind my back. That was the final straw. "I'm going to the police," I told her, pacing the living room in anger. Her reaction was instantaneous. She stood up, her face twisting with rage. "You wouldn't dare," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "Watch me," I shot back, my resolve hardening. She stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "If you do," she said, her eyes narrowing dangerously, "I'll tell them you were in on it. You think they'll believe you didn't know?" "You signed the paperwork." I froze. The audacity of her threat left me stunned. She had forged my signature so many times that even I started doubting what I had or hadn't signed. She had me cornered, and she knew it. For weeks, I felt trapped. I couldn't leave, and I couldn't stay. Every day was a waking nightmare, filled with tension so thick it was suffocating. My mind raced constantly, trying to find a way out of this mess. Finally, I decided to consult a lawyer. I needed someone who wasn't emotionally involved to give me a clear path forward. The lawyer was blunt but reassuring. "There's a chance we can prove the forgery," he said after reviewing the evidence. "The signatures are inconsistent. It's going to be a tough fight, but you have options." It wasn't much, but it was the first glimmer of hope I had felt in months. Armed with his advice, I began gathering every piece of evidence I could find. Emails, bank statements, loan documents, anything that could prove my innocence and expose her lies. The legal battle that followed was grueling. She played the victim, painting herself as a desperate woman who had made mistakes out of fear and necessity. But the evidence was overwhelming. Every lie she told, every tear she shed in court, was dismantled piece by piece. In the end, the court ruled in my favor. The business was saved, and she was held accountable for her actions. She's facing charges now, and honestly, I don't care what happens to her. She made her bed. Now she has to lie in it. The damage she did, however, will take years to repair. The business is hanging by a thread. I've lost clients, trust, and a significant amount of money. But for the first time in what feels like forever, I can breathe again. The weight of her betrayal is gone, replaced by the freedom to rebuild. Looking back, I used to think divorce was the worst thing that could happen to me. I thought it meant failure, that I had failed as a husband and as a partner. But I was wrong. Staying married to her, that was the real failure. That was the true betrayal of myself and everything I stood for. Now, I'm free. Free to rebuild, to focus on what really matters. It's going to be a long road, but at least now I'm walking it on my own terms. And this time, I won't let anyone, not even the person I once loved, drag me down again. The lessons I've learned from this ordeal are ones I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Trust is a fragile thing, easily shattered and difficult to mend. But more importantly, I've learned the value of resilience. No matter how deep the betrayal, no matter how overwhelming the odds, there is always a way forward. It might not be easy, and it might not be quick, but it's there for those willing to fight for it. As I stand in the ruins of what my life once was, I feel an odd sense of gratitude, not for her or for what she did, but for the clarity it brought me, for the realization that I am stronger than I ever knew, and for the chance to start over, this time with my eyes wide open.